Hi everyone, and welcome to this series of Build the Story, Then the Dashboard, Manufacturing Edition. So, we're going to explore a manufacturing Power BI dashboard focused around inventory management, primarily for an inventory manager, and also capacity planning, which more factory floor managers will be observing on an hourly basis as well. But since it's all about building the story first, we're then going to briefly dive into how do we gather the requirements, how do we build the story, and we need to understand spending more time on gathering requirements, building the story is where all the value lies. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Manufacturing Performance Dashboard. Now, this is made for a custom furniture maker in the UK, and really, this is the homepage. So, what do we see on the homepage? Well, we see the organization branding, but also it's a great way for the end users to be able to navigate to the necessary pages. For example, if I'm an inventory manager, I want to go to the inventory dashboard, so I simply select this button. If I am a production manager or a factory floor manager, I would rather go to the capacity dashboard. And of course, we have the sales dashboards as well for a completely different set of end users and audience as well. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and click inventory. I'm going to put my inventory manager hat on, and let's have a look at what we can see in here. So like I said, it's primarily for the inventory manager, and really what they want to oversee is, well, the raw materials, the work in progress, the finished goods, and also the MRO items. Okay, so really the main goal of the inventory manager is to maintain optimal stock levels, monitor the turnover, and of course reduce waste or overstocking. So the other thing worth calling out, as you can see in the top right here, this is refreshed on a daily basis. So 9 a.m. every day, this dashboard is refreshed. So after various requirement gathering sessions, going back and forth a little bit, we came down to 4 key KPIs that we should track or see immediately on the dashboard. The first one, of course, is inventory value. So I can see currently it's at 8 million, up slightly from last year. However, it's important, they said, that we must see the breakdown. Hence the reason I have the inventory breakdown here. So I can see that 8 million broken down into raw, work in progress, finish, and of course, MRO as well. Apart from that, I see the inventory quantity. So currently 381,000 units overall, which is a drop compared to last year. Now, look, what could this suggest, right? Possibly a shift towards higher value stock or maybe slower consumption as well. The other really important one that was fundamental is the turnover ratio, right? So currently it's around 2.3. I do understand from talking to the end users, roughly the target is 2.5, but we want to compare it to previous year as well. But really, a lower turnover could really indicate slower movement of finished goods, which, well, ties back to the inventory value, right? Where while increasing the work in progress as well. Now, we then have the stock adjustments, which is really important. Now, this tracks where the inventory is increasing or decreasing across the different categories, right? So I can see as of right now, we have a negative 1,800 with the work in progress dropping at 4.8k, while finished goods is the highest, around 2.7k. So if I look at this, well, maybe it's hinting, I don't know, at overproduction or write-offs potentially. And again, this ties back to the turnover ratio, right, of 2.3, which is roughly below the average we said, right, as really excess stock seems to be lingering. Okay, the other thing worth calling out, I guess, on stock adjustments is that stock adjustments is 0.59% of the total inventory, right? So the impact is small, but it's worth monitoring this, hence the reason we've added it to the solution. Now, before I continue with all the other visuals though, it's really important just to call out that we do have some slices for filtering the solution. So if I click on the slicer panel here, we get this nice clean interface. As you can see right now, I am looking at March 2025. However, I could go ahead and select a specific factory. I could go ahead and select the locations if I want, or the products, etc., etc. And as soon as I select something here, the report, of course, will render. But for the sake of this demo, I am going to keep it as it is, all factories, all locations, and for March 2025 as well. So now, if we move down, I have inventory by factory and type, and I really like this, right? So it shows everything stacked up. So I can see raw, work in progress, finished, MRO. So it helps me pinpoint maybe where stock is getting stuck or possibly over accumulating as well. So quite easily, I can see factory three has the highest amount of 1.9 million, driven by high finished goods, as I can see here in this purple, followed by MRO as well, which may again indicate slower dispatch or excess maintenance stock. Who knows? One thing to further explore as well. On the right-hand side here, I have the cost of goods sold, inventory, and turnover ratio for the rolling 12 months, right? Some managers wanted the rolling view, whilst others wanted just the current calendar view. So for that reason, we've decided to add this helpful little toggle here. So you can see rolling 12 months is toggled off, and now it's toggled on as well, right? And really, if I keep it on this rolling 12-month view, which is the default, again, it highlights monthly trends. It highlights or it reveals any sort of seasonality or emerging bottlenecks, which I pretty like. And lastly, in the bottom here, we have more of a table, right? A matrix that shows the various different items, right? Steel rods, nails, high-grade aluminium alloys, carbon fiber panels, and various different items as well. Apart from that, I can see the total quantity we have, the safety stock, the reorder point, as well as the days left. So for the inventory managers, they're highlighted that something like this would essentially be critical to them as well for more of the day-to-day decision making. So really showing exactly when might be the need to replenish or if there is a risk of a stock out as well. So that was a quick overview of the inventory manager page. Now let's go to the capacity page as well. So you can see on the left-hand panel here, I have capacity. Now, before I click into it, I want to call out it's built more for the factory floor and production managers. And some other seniors wanted to view this as well. This is refreshed on the hourly basis. Okay, so I've clicked that and now you can see it on the screen as well. So, of course, this is a demo. It was last refreshed at 3 p.m. It refreshes on an hourly basis. It's worth calling that out. Again, really, the end users want to see real-time or near real-time machine performance, the overall utilization rate, and any sort of downtime issues that may be happening on the day as well. The other really good thing about this is we can actually view this at the company level, or if I select filters down here, as you saw before, we can actually go ahead and select a single factory, right? And this has proved really useful because it is actually displayed on screens on the factory floor, or some of the factory managers have this on their tablets as well. So really valuable to them from that side. Now, what do we actually see? Well, at the top here, you can see I have the total SMV. So what is that? Standard minute value, right? So I can see it has been achieved so far against the target. I can also see the utilization rate. I can also see the units assembled, but also the downtime hours too. That's really interesting. Now, despite exceeding SMV targets, despite exceeding the utilization rate, right, it's 90%. That's pretty good until now. Now, one thing that doesn't look great is units assembled, down 20% compared to the actual target. So really, instantly, as a floor manager, to me, this will indicate a potential bottleneck or maybe an inefficiency somewhere in the production flow, right? Okay. Now, the charts below, there was a bit of back and forth discussion with what to actually display here as well, but these seem to be the most valuable things to see on the hourly basis, right? So they show on this side the hourly SMV usage and utilization is on this side as well. So they show how they change throughout the day. Again, it helps all the end users understand quickly or maybe identify any dips in performance and when those dips occurred and try and understand why they occurred at that moment in time, what can be put in place to resolve it or prevent it moving forward. Further down here, this was really interesting. Now, for those who don't know, CNC, I want you to think of it as a machine essentially, right? So each machine is called out with a number of components that have been processed. There's also daily targets for each one as well, based on the capacity. The other thing worth calling out, it shows whether the machine is active or inactive and how long it's been active and inactive for. So there's various different conditional format in here. First, you have, for example, here 5.2K, 5.2K, the target, we're up 0.3%, right? I then have a column chart here that shows the hours. So we're up to 3 p.m. So that starts at 9 a.m., finishes at 3 p.m. But just below that, this will also change if the machine is inactive. As you can see here for CNC3, it's been inactive for 56 minutes, so it's in the red. Even though we are up for components processed, the machine is inactive, and this could potentially cause an issue if it's not resolved quickly, right? So with that said, altogether, these reports or these dashboards help manufacturing teams stay on top of inventory levels, stay on top of capacity usage in near real time. And it really is a powerful tool for driving efficiency, reducing waste, and ensuring orders go out on schedule. So we just saw the dashboard. Now let's get on to the important stuff. How did we build it? How do we approach any dashboard requirements? Well, we start off by sitting down with the actual end users, the people who'll be using the report, and gather the requirements, build a story and narrative. So, what you're seeing on screen is a bit of an approach that we like to use. Now, we have oversimplified it for this example just to be able to showcase it a bit more. However, the elements are all exactly as we like to collect them. Now, where do we start off? We usually like to start off with the audience. And I always like to say, the number one reason why reporting projects fail is simply because we aren't gathering the requirements from the actual end users. That's right. It seems crazy, but we usually collect the requirements maybe from someone who's a bit more senior, a bit more influential, or someone else who claims to understand the pain points of the end users. But no one understands the requirements better than the end users themselves, okay? So for this particular example, it's worth also calling out, as you saw, we went through inventory management, capacity, and we also had sales in there. It wasn't a single requirement gathering session for all of these audiences. Because think about it, they all have their own KPIs, their own objectives, their own challenges. If you gather the requirements from all those three areas at the same time, well, it's going to get really messy. And if we try to satisfy too many audiences' needs, that's when you start building solutions that are just completely out of focus, overly complicated, and well, not adopted. So we start off with the audience. This is for the inventory management page you just saw a moment ago. So the end users here were the inventory managers. Like I said, other people did try to come here. We separated it out completely. Oops, let me put that up. There we go. It was the inventory managers. They need to basically oversee all the material categories and get a better feel and understanding of where they are, right? But the next part was, okay, why should we build this solution, right? Here, I really try to nail down the long narrative, right? Because many times I find we build dashboards, build reporting solutions, and in the end, they're not adopted simply because, well, a dashboard wasn't needed, right? So again, put a bit more time now to save you a lot of waste and disappointment afterwards. But when I was speaking to the inventory managers, they called out quite clearly, look lads, we need to get some more real-time insights. We need to have data accessible a lot more easily in order to see stock levels, monitor turnover, and reduce overstocking. It's a real big pain point for us right now, and we have no visibility over this, right? And without this, we can't go back to the senior team, make decisions, take actions. That's good, right? Good in that, yes, there is a true need here. However, we then moved on to, okay, there is a true need. I understand a lot just through that long narrative, But then I really like to, and when we go through these sessions, are very interactive workshops, we do a lot of whiteboarding. Okay, from that, what is the measurable aspect we can take away? If we could really assign that to a single measurable objective, what would it be? And that's where they called out, look, if our turnover is around 2.5%, we should be happy. And that's exactly where I usually like to try and go. Not always the case, so you have to pivot a little bit, but that was the ultimate objective for the inventory managers. Okay. Now, the next part is, well, okay, we know essentially what you're trying to achieve or where you're trying to go. How do you know if you're moving towards it, right? If you went to the office or into the warehouse, into the factory floor on a Monday morning and someone asked you for an update, what are the first numbers you need to see? Those are the type of questions we like to ask. And they said inventory value, quantity, stock adjustment, and naturally the turnover ratio as well. Great. There were many more KPIs. We pushed them all out. They belonged in sales. They belonged to capacity and planning. We did not add them here. We didn't want to build that very heavy, messy reporting solution. They got separated out. Not to say those KPIs weren't important to the organization. They are. They just belonged on a separate canvas, right? We then moved on to what's caused in red or green. So in other words, look, here you can see this story building up. Where are you trying to go? How do we know if we're moving towards it? Okay, if you're not moving towards it, what could potentially be causing it? Or if you are moving towards it, what could potentially be causing that as well, right? So think of this as the level of detail, the ways that you would like to break down the KPIs. And they said, look, fundamentally, we need to view at factory level. We need to have the material category level. We must be able to include supplier in there to see if any of the bottlenecks is due to supply deliveries and so on. We also need to have time periods for seasonality and also some scheduling aspects. Great. So these are the different ways we need to view, slice and dice the level of details of the numerical attributes, the KPIs. And then lastly, I always like to say, if we're not building a solution that is somewhat actionable, is it worth our time? Is it worth the energy and the money we're about to invest? And that's what exactly this is here. After we have all this information, and again, like I said, it's through a few workshops, we then come to the action to say, what actions would you genuinely take? Let's say you saw inventory value is in the red, right? And by the way, the KPIs, I should say, they need to have some sort of comparison, right? Versus target, versus last year, versus forecast, etc., etc. Let's say inventory value versus last year's in the red, and let's say a particular factory is causing this. Well, what are the actions you can take? And that's what we've recorded down there as well. The idea is, if you don't take any action, should we really include it in the solution? If there are no actions at all, should we build this solution, right? So hopefully you now got a good view of how we like to approach building a story, gathering the requirements, and we spend a lot more time here rather than in Power BI desktop. And again, the more time you spend with your end users gathering the requirements and then move to a bit of wireframe and prototype and designing, the last part, the development, is usually a walk in the park. You have the blueprint to success, the story, the wireframe. Moving to development, you can even just hand over all the artifacts and someone else can go ahead and build that as well. If you need any help with deriving a story, building Power BI solutions that are genuinely used, feel free to reach out.